Mayor, we are now broadcasting live on YouTube.
Thank you.
Stephen, I like your toy fixing skills live on TV. That is something I'm familiar with.
Madam Deputy City Clerk, are we ready to go?
We're ready, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome to our October 13th, 2020 regular meeting. I'll now call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. For the audience tonight, I'm the mayor and serve as presiding officer for tonight's meeting. Tonight's public meeting will be conducted utilizing Zoom video communications. This allows the city to conduct essential business and comply with Public Health Administration recommendations to protect the public and city employees to practice social distancing and limit exposure by not allowing in-person public meetings. To ensure that the public will be able to participate in our meetings, public comments can be submitted as live comments during the Zoom meeting and via email at publiccomments@cityofglendora.org. A brief line for tonight's meeting will include 2 special items: National Friends of Library Week proclamation and a COVID-19 economic update, 1 public hearing updating the city master fee schedule, 2 items listed under consent, 1 unfinished business item, false alarm contract award, and 5 new business items, demographics contract, holiday schedule, Friends Foundation grant, Mills Act amendment, and executive funding for mobility of seniors and individuals with disabilities. For a brief statement, last week we released our latest Minute with the Mayor, and I had the pleasure to co-host with our Director of Community Services, Mr. John Aguirre. We had a lot of fun filming that, and my thanks goes out to John and his team for continuing to step up outside the box, or in their case, inside the box, bringing creative community services. There are topics of interest that you would like for us to share. Please send those questions to mayor@cityofglendora.org to better help us communicate with you. And for up-to-date Halloween information, please check out our website at www.cityofglendora.org/COVID-19. There's a little red box at the very top of the homepage. You simply click on that, it'll bring you right to where we need to be. Madam Deputy City Clerk, will you please conduct the roll call?
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, I would like to conduct an oral roll call and request that each council member respond with present when their name is called. Councilmember Thompson.
Present. Sorry.
Councilmember Friedendahl.
Present.
Councilmember Boyer.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis.
Present.
And Mayor Alawas.
Present.
All are present. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Now we'll have our invocation by Pastor Hillary Chrisley of United Methodist Church.
I invite you to, excuse me, are you ready?
Go ahead.
Thank you. I invite you to join me in prayer. Gracious God, as we gather as a community, seeking the best for our lives together, so much going on around us seems to be out of control, and we are so grateful for your direction to us in the areas that we can influence. For the gifts of literacy and discovery, we give you thanks. As we take the opportunity for each voice to be heard in our voting process, we ask for your wisdom. And we would ask you to bless all who serve our community life. As our mayor and council consider all that is before them this very evening, we ask that they hear your voice of encouragement and guidance. For ever-present grace and care, we give you thanks. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you. And I would like to make one quick correction. I announced the wrong meeting date. It's October 27th, not October 13th. So corrected. And our pledge tonight will be conducted by Councilmember Mendel Thompson.
All right, if you would please stand and place your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mendel. This brings us to our special items, proclamation recognizing October 18th to 24th, 2020 as National Friends of Library Week. I'd like to invite Councilmember Gary Boyer to read the proclamation.
Should unmute before, shouldn't I?
That's all right. You're wearing a Dodger cap.
Excuse me, now I lost the proclamation. Okay. There we go, got it back. Whereas the Glendora Public Library Friends Foundation supports the mission, vision, and values of our local library and its commitment to excellence. And whereas the Friends Foundation raises money that enables our library to move from good to great, providing the resources and additional programming, much needed equipment, support for children's summer reading and special community events throughout the year. And whereas the work of the Friends Foundation highlights on an ongoing basis the fact that our library is the cornerstone of the community, providing opportunities for all to engage in the joy of lifelong learning and connect with the thoughts and ideas of others from ages past to the present. And whereas the Friends Foundation understands the critical importance of a well-funded library and advocates to ensure that the Glendora Public Library gets the resources it needs to provide a wide variety of services, whether on-site or online, including organized, equitable, enduring, and expert access to the world of ideas. And whereas the Friends Foundation's gift of their time and longstanding commitment to the library sets an example for all in how volunteerism leads to positive civil engagement and the betterment of our community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the Glendora City Council, do hereby proclaim October 8th through 24th, October 18th through the 24th, 2020, as the Friends of the Library Week. We encourage all residents to join with the Friends Foundation in support of the Glendora Public Library and to express our community's gratitude for all they do and to make our great library even better. In witness whereof, our mayor has hereunto set forth his hand and caused the seal of the city of Glendora to be affixed this 19th day of October, 2020. And I believe we got Bo Gutzweiler and Maggie Laura are here representing the Friends Foundation. Can't present this to you in person, but I'd like to invite you to say a few words.
Yes, thank you, Garrett, Councilman Boyer. It's our pleasure. You know, we have a long history of supporting the foundation, and I'm here along with Bo Gutzweiler as our president and Josina, our vice president. We started as a small group of community friends who wanted to support their library with book sales, and we've grown into the foundation and providing supplemental funding and partnering with the city. So I'll leave the remainder of my comments to Bo, who will share just how we're feeling at this moment and in light of the grant that we're bestowing upon the city as well.
Thank you, Mayor Maggie, and thank you, Mayor and City Council members. What a beautiful sentiment in that proclamation. It matches the beauty of the certificate itself, and we'll display that proudly. You know, there are a lot of community groups and nonprofits that they're committed to helping support the city in various ways for the good and the welfare of the city. But the Friends Foundation is kind of unique in its niche. We exist to provide financial and program support specifically to the library. And that's our sole purpose. And we're proud to be part of that. We think we've got the finest library around, the best director and support team that there. We love Janet Stone and all that she's doing to make our library, as you said in the proclamation, good to great. And our tagline is there's 1,000 stories in one foundation. So what we do is made possible through Book Loft and the volunteers, the night on the plaza where the entire community comes together to support the library through the Friends Foundation. And we just got word that we received a $10,000 grant from the WIN Foundation, which will gladly use that toward our commitment this year to fund various projects at the library. And as I just want to say that the Friends Foundation stands at the ready. We are poised to do even bigger and maybe greater things as the city begins to work through the library's strategic plan. And they're setting big goals. We are looking forward to coming alongside and partnering with the city to do our part in making that happen. And in closing, I'm just saying that we've been waiting for a big, hairy, audacious goal, a BHAG. And when the time comes, I want you to know, Adam and City Council and everyone, that we're going to be there for the library, doing our very best to support that project and as it ongoing. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bo. Thank you, Maggie. This brings us to our next special item. I'd like to invite up our City Manager, Adam Raymond, to give us an update on the COVID-19 reopening of our economy.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Mayor, and thank you for the introduction on Halloween. We know we get lots of questions, so appreciate you pointing people in the right direction and reminding them to contact the city if they have any questions. Next slide, please. So as you can imagine, we've been here every council meeting since really April when we started to have our hands around the economic reopening. Past city council presentations under special items have provided the details for how we are where we are today. So this presentation picks us up from the happenings since October 13th. And with that, we'll go to the next slide. Just a really quick reminder, the state of California has transitioned to a blueprint for safer reopening. This is a color-coordinated 4-stage reopening that includes a key list of metrics we'll discuss on the next slide, including rates of infection for specific categories of the underserved populations, in addition to infection rates per 100,000 people. In order to move to the next stage, a county must meet certain metrics for 2 straight weeks. They must spend a minimum of 3 weeks in each category. Currently, the earliest that LA County could arrive in the yellow, which is the earliest section, would be early 2021. Next slide, please. At the state level, this past couple weeks, there were some additional allowances. The final group of personal care services, such as tattoo parlors and massage parlors, were allowed to have some modified indoor reopenings in the purple tier. Additionally, small outdoor theme parks were allowed in the orange tier, as were outdoor sports venues. So as the Dodgers are playing this evening, if this was the World Series and they were at home or away, if they were at home, we would see a potential reopening in the orange tier. And finally, large theme parks near and dear to many people's heart as Disneyland may not reopen until Orange County is in the yellow tier. Next slide, please. So you may have seen some news on a vaccine of late, and as that relates to California, the state of California is one of 5 agencies working with the CDC and the Department of Defense, the DoD, to plan for site-specific vaccination distributions within the state of California. The state was awarded $29 million in federal funding to help set up that plan. Today, Newsom's announcements included that this process would be a collaboration with Nevada, Oregon, and Washington as well. Next slide, please. So we talked a little bit earlier about the certain thresholds and categories the county must meet on infection rates prior to reopening. Currently, we are in the purple tier. We'll describe exactly where we're at here shortly. You will notice that we also have additional characteristics or rates that are in both the red tier and moderate tier, orange tier as well. So with that, we will go to the next slide. So as of today, these figures are updated every Tuesday at the state level. As you can see below, California, within the state of California, Los Angeles County has been in the most restrictive tier since this new system was rolled out. Current adjusted case rate for the tier is at 8 new infections per 100,000 residents, which over the past 4 weeks has gone from 7 to 7.2 to 7.4, then 6, and now 8. LA County has provided some reasons for the reopening, sort of stepping in the wrong direction, predicated on additional activities to do and gatherings of people, both in the family and for sports related activities. As you will note, the positivity rate overall is 3.7. That would actually qualify Los Angeles County to open up 2 tiers from where we're at. And the health equity quartile positivity rate represents the infection rates amongst the 25% of at-risk population. That will qualify us to open up under the substantial category or 1 rate further. But the new infections per 100,000 continues to be very difficult to meet. Next slide, please. So currently the LA County's initiative, the Safer at Work and in the Community policy, which was adopted May 29th, that health order was updated the 23rd of October to allow batting cages, miniature golf, and go-kart racing to happen outdoors. Additionally, all personnel care establishments may offer facilities indoors with modifications, 25% capacity, face coverings, so on and so forth. Additionally, they've also clarified and permitted food services at indoor malls and shopping centers, and this includes wineries and breweries, which are allowed to serve without food. In addition, you no longer have to make an appointment to go to one of those businesses in LA County. Next slide, please. LA County has also made a couple other changes for schools of late. There's been a lot of discussion around bringing children back into schools, both private and public institutions. Recently, the state of through LA County has increased the percentage of students allowed back currently with the application of the appropriate and submission of the appropriate documentation to the most at-risk students, those students with IEPs or who are English language learners. The increase at 10% and 25%. Currently with the 2 public school districts in town, Glendora Unified is in the 10% category and Charter Oak has not submitted documentation as of yet. Additionally, the county has permitted TK through 2nd grade in classroom education. There is a waiver process that's there. There was some updated statistics presented today at the board meeting. We do not have them in this presentation, but some additional schools have applied for a waiver to reopen. The county is only granting 30 schools per week. They have yet to reach the 30 school capacity. Last week or 2 weeks ago, they announced the allowance of 4 private schools to reopen full time. Next slide, please. So we got a lot of questions on Halloween, and again, Mayor, appreciate the lead in here. Currently not permitted in LA County. There is some guidance that is available on the city's website as well for both Halloween and general holiday, which we will discuss. The current health order in LA County does not allow for gatherings. Currently, carnivals, festivals, live entertainment, and in-person haunted house attractions are not permitted. The county is not recommending door-to-door trick-or-treating or trunk-or-treating, although that is not permitted or not outlawed. The county is recommending you do not do that, as it is difficult to maintain infection protocols such as spacing and wearing masks. Next slide, please. Apologize, the background noise there on Foothill Boulevard. Currently permitted and recommended, compliant with many health order criteria, are online parties and contests, car parades such as drive-by events for contests of people dressing up or their cars, drive-through events like a car haunted house, and additional drive-in events such as picking up a treat bag. The county also recommends Halloween movie nights and drive-in theaters. Next slide, please. In addition to normal programs such as buying and carving a pumpkin, dressing up your home, enjoying a Halloween themed meal at an outdoor restaurant, and looking and visiting art installations at an outdoor museum. Next slide, please. The county also this week issued general guidance on holidays. Many of these are familiar from what we just went through. No in-person gatherings, no holiday displays without social distancing, try to avoid door-to-door activities. Recommendations, like most things in 2020 this year, appear to be online drive-through events, and avoid gatherings of more than 3 families. And if you are gathering with 3 families, outdoors with masks with less than 2 hours pursuant to the current county health order. And you're always encouraged to decorate your home. Next slide, please. Again, just a quick reminder, we do get the question quite frequently. The city of Glendora can make laws more restrictive. We do not have the ability to make them less restrictive. The state, sets the floor or the ceiling. The county gets to set the floor, and then the city could set the basement of sorts. The city of Glendora has not set any more restrictive rules and has allowed all the activities within the county that the county allows. Next slide, please. And just a quick update. City Hall facilities, police station, transportation center are open Tuesday through Thursday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. The computer lab is open Tuesday, Thursday in the Bidwell Forum from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And starting this Wednesday, Plaza Discovery Space outside the Bidwell will be open to 10 to 1 p.m., sort of a cafe style ability to check out books. We're pretty excited about that. Having some normalcy return is great. Much appreciated to staff for their hard work. And as always, staff is available during office hours and oftentimes outside of those hours via appointment, call, video conference, email, etc. Monday through Friday. If you contact city staff, we will absolutely make it a point to get in contact with you and address any concerns you have. Next slide, please. As always, here's the website. Visit the city's website, cityofglendora.org/COVID-19 for all the most up-to-date information as sort of an aggregate site of everything else that's here as well. And with that, last slide, please, Elvia. Turn it over to Mayor for you for any questions that you may have. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Adam. I appreciate that. This will bring us now to the student reports, which we have none. And then next is a public comment. Open a public comment period. Invite members of the public to address the city council. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes, speaking once on both on and off agenda items. This is your time to speak uninterrupted. Please address your comments to me, the presiding officer. Public comment is limited to 30 minutes. If you'd like to request to speak, select the raise hand icon in the Zoom before the close of the public comment period. You will then be called on when it's your turn to speak. Do we have any public comments, Madam Deputy City Clerk?
Thank you, Mayor. Just as a side note, we did receive 2 public comments, both on October 20th that were made part of the agenda and are available for the public to view. We have Joe Cena on the line who is asked to make a comment.
Go ahead, Joe.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you hear me? Yeah. Can you hear me now? Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council, staff. My name is Joe, I'm the president and CEO of the Glendora Chamber of Commerce, and I'm always happy to be here on these with all of you a couple times a month. As mentioned, a lot of businesses are back up and are running at, at smaller capacity, but at least they're open. And with this, we hope everyone utilizes our local businesses as much as possible and as safe as possible. Just kind of as a reminder, it's up to us to keep them open. Our businesses are counting on us to stay open. So just as a reminder, when people are out with their families, friends, at gatherings, please remember our actions can affect if our businesses stay open. Because we don't want it to go backwards, right? So I was thinking of that old commercial, you know, that this is your brain, they crack the egg, this is your brain on drugs. Think of it this way. I don't want to not being a downer, but think of our business situation like this. These are our businesses. These are our businesses if COVID restrictions keep going much longer. Break the egg. Any questions? So not to be a downer, but it's serious. As business leaders here, we just need to remind everybody that it's up to us to keep us going, keep our businesses going. So the chamber is here. We're continuing to do as much as possible to help as much as we possibly can. So please shop Glendora. And thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Anyone else wishing to speak?
No other requests have been received via the Zoom meeting or email.
Thank you, Elvia. I'll close public comment period and bring us to reports and statements. Mendel?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. And I'll just tag along with what Joe said, 59 days and Christmas is here. So I want to urge each and every one, as Joe just did, to shop and eat in town. And let's just continue to support each and every one who provides the food to us, the services, the products which we like. 7 days and election will be here. So I would offer my support to everyone to get out and vote. There are a lot of things that will affect us all, and each and every one of us who can vote should vote. And so I'm encouraging each and every one to go out and exercise that right. As all of you know, our goal line continues to work hard, and I am the council's rep to our board. And so I just wanted to bring you up to date on just a couple of things. Closures, there are 2 currently, and those are going well. I spoke to the key folks just a couple of hours ago, and everything is going well. The schedule is being maintained. A water main broke. They didn't expect to do that, but it did. But recovered well. There was a frontier line that asbestos was embedded within that line, and when they started to move that, they had to stop, and it took a couple weeks to get everything approved and fixed and everything. But those are the 2 things that have popped up now. But the closures are going well. So just continue to exercise the grace that all of us have in terms of those roads. Bridges, as all of us know, the bridge on Route 66 will start to be built in the spring. The bridge at Foothill and Grand will start in the fall of 21, and the Lone Hill Bridge will start in the spring of 22. And so just kind of an update on those. Video of the current work is on our city's website, and I want to give a shout out to Craig Gill. He has posted that, and all you need to do is go to our city website, gold line, and push and play, and you'll see a current assessment of what is being done. And it's a wonderful piece, and so would encourage you to go and look at that. And lastly, here in the next month or 2, Goal Line will give us all a formal update on everything. Closures, bridges, parking, work hours, just everything. The council will, get that. The public will be able to see that. And so that will be good, and looking forward to that. I have to say that they are listening to us. Gary and I serve you through this board, and then staff is on a couple of other boards, and they really do take time to listen to, you know, what we say. And so I think things are working out good there. If there's ever a question, please just feel free to write me or call me, text me, and I will do everything I can to, you know, answer you. And with that, I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mendel, for your goal line update. Much
Thank you.
appreciated. David?
I just want to echo what others have said, and thank you, Joe, for your promotion to business. Shop Glendora, and during this next week, please get out and vote. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Gary?
Yeah, I want to start out by giving a shout out to our school teachers and the school districts. Both Glendora Unified and Charter Oak have been through a lot of changes lately. They both have new superintendents. And I watch as my grandkids are doing the distant learning and how great of a job the teachers are doing working with them. You know, this has been an extremely tough year on everybody, but especially on the schools. The educators have had to learn a whole new way to teach kids. There have been change going on, and then we have COVID thrown in on top of everything. And so there's a lot of stress on everyone. And I just want to remind everyone that our kids and grandkids, the school board's kids and grandkids, they all go to this district, and we need to be patient with our teachers, our staff, our administrators, and the decision makers over there as we try to get through this and look forward to getting back to normal and getting our kids back in school and running all over the place. So I just wanted to make that note and send the kudos out to those that are working so hard for our kids. I want to make sure everybody watches for holiday event updates. We have already made the decision to cancel the holiday stroll. There will be a tree lighting ceremony that will probably be virtual, but keep your eyes open for information on it. The star at the top of the hill will be lit as always. But for right now, a lot of things are still up in the air. We're hoping things get better, but the last thing we want to do is let our guard down during the holidays and make things any worse. So watch for those updates, and everybody involved will get information out as soon as possible. Speaking of that, just a reminder that there is no organized Halloween walk in the village this year. Every year we have approximately 3,000 kids that come down to the village, and that has been canceled this year. So don't plan on bringing your kids down here. There are some businesses that are doing some individual things, and so feel free to support those businesses. But for right now, you know, that Halloween walk is canceled. But do remember that the community services, the Glendora Community Services, have organized a monster hunt to help alleviate getting out and doing some trick-or-treating and some of the things we normally do. So there will be monsters, giant monsters all over town. There's a map on the, well, it's not up yet, but there will be a map on the city website in the next day or two showing you where all the locations are going to be. And as you go to those various locations, I think there's going to be some surprises for people. So be safe this Halloween, and we're looking forward to the holidays. And more information on the monster hunt, go to yourcitysafari.com. That's www.yourcitysafari, all one word, .com. Thanks. That's it, Michael.
Thank you, Gary. You one of the attractions?
Not yet. Haven't been nominated yet.
Karen?
Thank you. On the theme of Halloween, just wanted to give a shout out not only to those folks that have decorated and entered the Halloween decorating contest, but to so many of our residents that have gone over and above and trying to create a festive Halloween atmosphere in their yards. So thank you for entertaining us with all of your decor. And also this week is Red Ribbon Week. The theme is be happy, be brave, be drug-free. It's been over 30 years that we have pause to remember how we can be healthy both in mind and body by choosing to be drug-free and supporting our children and our families and making good choices, and remembering a DEA agent, Enrique Camarino, who was killed by the drug cartel. So just a reminder to everybody that even though we focus on those things during Red Ribbon Week, that every day is a good day to choose to be healthy and to be safe. Thanks.
Thank you, Karen. I attended Congresswoman Grace Napolitano's monthly mental health meetings that she has. I've been attending the last several, actually. I'm always impressed with all the resources that she has there in those meetings for folks to come over and get help and to direct folks in the right possible direction. And as I mentioned before, I've been working on a letter to the governor concerning housing, supportive housing, mental illness support for some of the state mental institutions that have been shuttered or grossly underfunded. We have a little bit less than a dozen mayors now that have signed it. This Friday, we're going to have a group of 70 mayors review this and get a number of signatures, hopefully, for that. And this will be on the agenda for next month's COG meeting. And hopefully we'll have a great number of mayors and cities signing this moving forward and get the attention of the state to actually do what's right, open up these mental institutions and give the needed care that that these folks really need. Just as an example, we have Latterman over here that's been shuttered. They can house up to 2,000 people just as it is right now. It's going to take some work to get it up and going, but it can house 2,000 people currently. But they've given it over to Cal Poly to repurpose the whole facility. So with that, I would like to invite Chief Matt Egan to come up and give us some sort of a briefing, a dialogue on everything around the elections next week, what they're doing to ensure safety and making sure the ballots are safe and general safety overall. Matt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Happy to oblige your questions. First off, I echo everyone else's sentiment regarding the right and the privilege to vote. It's important to do so, and I encourage everyone who is voting age and above to go for it. This is our opportunity to employ democracy at its finest. We are 7 days away. Our polls are open. Our voting collection boxes are available, and they are safe. Regionally, myself and other law enforcement executives in the San Gabriel Valley have been meeting twice a week for the past month on election topics. Voter safety is number one in our books, as well as ballot integrity, and then planning for any kind of civil unrest, or in the unlikely scenario, there's a problem with the election results, delayed results or such, what that may look like for our concerns from a law enforcement perspective. To date, we've met with county, state, FBI, all sorts of different executives, cyber sleuths that are trolling the cybersphere and the internet, looking for trends and for data. There's nothing out there. There's nothing out there to suggest currently right here in Glendora that we have any unsafe conditions or any cyber attacks to put any kind of distrust in the voter system here. Our boxes here are safe and close to home. One is at the Teen Center down on Dawson, a city facility which is staffed, and the other is at the back of City Hall, again, a city facility right here on our civics complex, staffed. So they're good places, they're safe, they're lit, and they're available for the public to use. On voting day, we'll have increased patrols because that's the day that we tend to see more and more people at the polls with lines and such. And we're going to be not at voting locations, but around voting locations to provide that extra presence so that people feel safe to cast their ballot in a safe way. So again, I encourage everybody to get out and vote. It's going to be a safe way to do so. You can do that now with early voting. Mail-in ballots are accepted here at the City Hall and at Teen Center. And looking forward to a safe election season. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate that. brings us to reordering the agenda. Does anyone wishing to reorder or add to the agenda tonight?
No.
Hearing and seeing none. We will move on now to our first and only public hearing, a public hearing to consider amending section 9.44 of the Glendora Municipal Code relating to public safety expenses and the city's master fee schedule. I'd like to invite, again, Police Chief Egan to present the staff report.
Mr. Mayor and Council, public, thank you very much. Tonight, I'm going to present for you our proposed amendment to section 9.44 of the municipal code entitled safety expenses. Next slide, please. Public safety expenses are listed in the Glendora Municipal Code under Title IX, entitled Public Peace, Morals, and Safety. Drill that down a little further. There's a section entitled Chapter 9.44, which covers noise regulations. And then a little deeper into that is the billing of public safety expenses. I won't belabor and read word for word, but here's the essence that the city's finance department, if after we respond to a disorderly gathering or a gathering where a party of alcohol is being served to those people under age 21, and we've gone out to that location for a series of repeat responses to tell them to knock it off or to keep the noise down or to break up the party, our finance department can invoice for public safety expenses incurred during these responses to the location. Next slide, please. So currently, and what it would look like going forward if so approved, public safety expenses, this applies to all residential and commercial properties, privately owned rentals, leases, and again, short-term rentals. There's no time, so there's no hour of day restriction to this, but it does require a police response and a police assessment. We have to take a reporting party's comments about a particular disorderly gathering or a disruptive location and go see for ourselves. Our goal is always compliance. It's always been the same. It always remained the same. If we can get a party host or a resident to comply with the code, then our mission has been successful. But oftentimes we find that we are met with either intoxicated residents or people who are tenants at the location who are going to ignore the rules. So by matter of protocol, we do an initial contact, we document their name or the owner information, we provide them a flyer to the host, which is serves as our written warning. That has listed on it the applicable sections and what the fine structure is. I'll go over the fine structure in the next slide, but non-compliance resulting in repeat responses. So if we go back out second, third time in the same evening, or within 12 months of getting that first initial written warning, they will receive a citation at some point. There is a little bit of give and take. There is a little bit of cooperative. And again, our goal is compliance. So if we get out there and really it's obtrusive to one person, but we get out there and assess it and it's really not as bad, or they've already shut it down and quit before we get to the location. If they're in compliance when we arrive, our goal is met and no citation will be issued. Next slide, please. Current existing fine structure was last updated in 2010. So response number one is our written warning. That's where we offer them an education period, including identifying what the code section says and what the fines are. The second response, and this is after 12 months, so second response could result in a citation of 150, 300 for the third, 450 for the fourth, and all responses subsequent to that. So this is based on a calendar year of 12 months from the first response, and it allows the city to recover public safety expenses for our staff time and any damage or injuries to any city property. So if we get a really unruly party where people start throwing rocks or bottles at our police cars, in addition to the staff time, both us, helicopter fuel, any expenses that are incurred in the management of that property, we would also recoup our costs or try to recover our costs for damage to city property as well. Next slide, please. So we have a really good history of success using this code section. Over the past 10 years, this tool's worked very well. Compliance is almost always achieved after the initial citation. Second citations are really rare. I have to be honest with you. It's rare when we have to do that. For your average party host, this is your resident who lives at the home, who has a connection to the community and to the neighborhood. It's got to go out and see, his neighbor taking out the trash the next morning, or cut lawns, or they share parking areas. Really, those party hosts, this structure works really well. Fines can get, and that's because fines can get really expensive, especially when the structure climbs from that time. There's a 12-month time frame. So let's say they have a St. Patrick's Day party, they get an initial warning, and then they're quiet for 3 months, and then they have a huge blowout bash birthday party. Well, that's response number 2 in 12 months. So that would yield a citation. And so once people realize that in that first citation is issued, it generally nips it in the bud. So all things were going great. And then, of course, everyone's very familiar. And on August 22nd, we discovered that fine structure might serve us better if we were to address it and become a little more robust for the non-resident and short-term resident or rental occupants. And I'm referring directly to the party house up on Sierra Madre. Next slide, please. So what we've come up with is a blend of addressing the homeowners who are good and responsive to their needs and have that connection to the community, while also providing us so it's a slightly lower initial second response, but it has a very significant steep upturn in the 5th and 6th response and 6th and subsequent responses, adding an additional layer of 1,000 and 2,500. It remains based on the calendar year of 12 months from the first response. So that is a good tool. That 12-month calendar starts from that initial warning period, and then each response after that would climb the ladder of the fine value. And it still allows the city to recover public safety expenses. Next slide, please. So this fine structure, as I just said, the everyday residents are going to find a slightly lower initial fine. So this is good for your average homeowner who has like I said, has a St. Patrick's Day bash, and then they have a birthday party 3 months later, and police get called because it's loud, and it's in the evening and it's disruptive, and we get out and let's say they are the recipient of one of our municipal code violation citations. It's a slightly lower fine amount for that initial citation on that second response in 12 months. But for the non-resident hosts, that elevated fine structure would climb very quickly if we're going out to a house, every month or every 2 weeks, because there's a short-term rental in there every 2 weeks. Very quickly, we'll climb up to that number 6 level of responses, 6 and subsequent, where that $2,500 per citation structure will really snap and get the attention of that non-residential party host. One of the things we needed to help offset is that theory that the non-residential party host income, so that them charging at the door for a commercial, basically a commercially run house party, that our fines will far and exceed the fear. We want to overcome that. If they're going to make $3,000-4,000 on charging at the door, if we come at them with a 2,500 citation one time, and then we threaten them with a second one, we're going to get their attention much quicker than citing them for 450 on our previous fine structure. So again, slightly lower on initial for the second response and below, from 150 down to 100, but the remaining tiers are steep and elevate fairly rapidly, and they're simply to address that party home, which is continually non-compliant. So it does 2 things. It recoups the staff time for us being there, taking away from normal city police services, and it also serves as a threat of punitive action so that we can hopefully curtail this from not occurring anymore. That's the plan. Next slide, please. So to amend this chapter, City Council needs to conduct a public hearing, which we're doing today. City Clerk issued a notice of public hearing, which was published on both October 5th and October 15th. City Council will today accept testimony and hear evidence. And if If approved, we need to adopt a resolution to amend the master fee schedule related to public safety expenses. This is listed under PD-23 in the master fee schedule. And you can see the current fee schedule is on the left column and the proposed fee schedule is on the right. Both have the staff time allowance, allowing us to recoup our city staff time for any injured property as a result of it, to recoup our costs from those events. Next slide, please. Staff's recommendations are today to introduce the first reading of this ordinance and the amendment of it, and then to adopt a resolution to adjust the master fee schedule as indicated in my staff report. And that concludes the end of my report, and I am happy to entertain any questions council may have.
Thank you, Matt. Great presentation. At this point, I'm going to open up public comment, invite members of the public to address the City Council. Each public speaker will be limited to 3 minutes uninterrupted, and please address your comments to me, the presiding officer. Elvie, do we have anyone wishing to speak or any letters received?
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, we have received no request to speak via the Zoom meeting or through the public comment email.
Thank you very much. We'll close public comment, bring it back to council for questions. Mendel?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I certainly support this. I would, as I've expressed to our chief and city manager, I would support a higher fee structure on the bottom end, but I'm not going to argue that point because I do think that overall that this is good. Chief, could you just remind me of one thing, and that is that the owner of the house needs to be available within an hour, and if he or she is not, we still have authority to go in and do whatever that we need to do. Is that correct?
It's yes and no with an asterisk mark behind it. So the answer is yes. The good neighbor policy does under the short-term emergency ordinance that was created. The good neighbor policy does assert that the homeowner needs to be available or have a representative available to respond to the home in the event it's requested by us, the city. That arm would likely be a police department if it was in the evening, to mitigate the damage or to stop what's going on there, basically ask them to leave. We do have to toe the line between the Fourth Amendment and rights of properties. So what we would ask is that responsible party, if they cannot for some reason arrive, we need to have them give us the authority to enter the property to basically break up that house party that's going on. That would be a condition of that. Typically, how I envision this going at a short-term rental, if we have a problem house, we're going to ask that via the good neighbor policy, ask that responsible party to come and deal with it. They're going to show up, they're going to talk to their tenants, the short-term tenants, and if they fail to comply with the owner of the property, obviously they're going to handle the civil arrangement of reversal of funds, but terminate the short-term rental at that point and ask us to have them vacate the property. That's how we would handle that going forward. We haven't had an opportunity to do so. It's a very, very new short-term, the urgency ordinance was just passed. So
right.
Still navigating the process, but that's how I would envision it going. Still have a few things to go through, but the answer is yes and no, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I support this. And that's
Thanks,
all.
sir.
Thank you, Mendel. David?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just as a clarification, while I also support this, I want to make sure if we do a citation, is the citation issued to the property host and or property owner, or is it issued to a tenant? Because the tenant can become a flight risk. We may not see them as far as the collection basis, but is the landlord in this case the cited party?
Well, I can tell you that I'm sorry, I'm getting a little background. I can tell you from the last occurrence that we have where we imposed administrative fines for a disruptive party, that was the house on Sierra Madre. We cited both the short-term tenant at the location and we cited the actual homeowner who was not at the location. Our goal is to gain compliance and to recoup our costs. So we would weigh that with the city attorney, which one of the two we would like to go after the most. But on the scene at 10 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning, likely we're going to entertain citing the actual party host, because that's where we feel that the most impact of a higher fee structure right in his hand, handing it to him or her, the host, on the spot, saying, you just earned yourself $1,000 ticket if we're back in, if you don't quite shut this party down and have everybody leave and we get a return phone call, the next one is $2,500. And they don't need to be present to get that citation if the party continues. We can cite them with them not being present or with them not even being cooperative. So I think that we would tend to cite the
Thank you.
host.
And
Yeah, the host.
again, I do it. I'm sorry, we're chopping each other up here. Yeah, great, thank you. And I understand and I appreciate the encouragement here is for compliance and good neighborliness. So, hopefully we don't have to exercise this, but if we do, then fun has a price, I suppose. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Are you good, David?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Yeah, Matt, no, this is a great idea. I like this, but I do have a couple of questions, and I didn't think about them until tonight as you were going through this report. First off, if you're citing a party host and a homeowner, is that considered 2 citations, or is that considered 1 citation for each party?
I would consider that 1 citation for matching the same response. So what would happen, and what I will recall from our previous house on Sierra Madre, is we cited the host on the scene. And then in addition to that, we issued citations administratively to the owners after the fact for that disorderly gathering and allowing that disorderly gathering to occur. Not on the scene at night, but after the fact. They mirrored each other. It would, the citations, although one's going one way and one's going the other, they're not going to compound on top of each other. They would be in response to a second or third or fourth response on police presence.
So, Mr. Mayor, can I respond to that?
Yes, please.
I have a slightly different take on that.
Mm.
I think the cost of police services in order to break up a disorderly home or violating the noise ordinance or other activities is a liability which is joint and several. We can assess that liability against in using the chief's hypothetical, the property owners as well as the party sponsors. These fines are penalties issued for violating the law. So you can impose a fine, in my view of the law, for the second, third, fourth, fifth, or sixth responses that violate the municipal code individually against each violator of the code, which can be, in the case of a short-term rental party house, the party sponsor and the property owner. So it is, in my view, theoretically possible that you could, on any given party, assess several $1,000s in administrative costs for police services rendered necessary to remedy the violation of law. That's one cost. And then you could cite the party host for, let's say, the third response, and the property owner for the fourth response, if it were a second party, or the fifth response, if it were a third party, but a different party host. Those fines are penalties for violation of the law. Cost recovery is different than fines, penalties for violating the law. So it could compound. You could theoretically charge the property owner and the party sponsor, let's just pull a number out of the air, $5,000 for police responses to clear out a nasty party. You could then cite the party sponsor for a second or third response, And if the property owner is renting out this property on a regular basis and you've been called back there 4 or 5 or 6 times, you could cite the property owner separately for those violations. So in our hypothetical example, let's assume that the cost of law enforcement services were $5,000. This were the third response to the party host. So he's cited for $350 in penalties, in fines for violating the law. Let's assume that this property owner has a bad habit of renting the property out every weekend, and we're down there every weekend, and potentially we could cite the property owner and fine him $3,500 for a 5th and 6th response. So you could have in excess of $10,000 in administrative costs and fines for violation of law. So it's a pretty powerful tool. And guess what? Some of these parties can earn $30,000 in an evening, or $10,000 or $20,000 in an evening. And they view these citations as just the cost of doing business. So we need to do something to incentivize people to comply with the law, and to not have them look at that and say, okay, I'll pay these fines. It's a cost of doing business, but I'm going to net after all of my costs and all the police services and the fines, I'm going to net another 12 grand for 10 hours of work. We need to disincentivize that. And this is a step in the right direction to do that.
Yep. Okay. I appreciate the clarification. But again, as Matt said, the whole goal here is to get compliance, and hopefully these fines don't get to that. But the next question I have is, do these same rules fall into place if somebody is having a party at public property, like at Finkbeiner Park, or at businesses? Let's say if the Kwanians get out of hand over at the Village Eatery and you're called out on them numerous times, are these same things go into place for those types of violations?
Short answer is absolutely.
Okay.
Or make the Kwanians up their fines to their members.
There you go.
No, the section, although that particular reference wasn't what we developed many moons ago when we thought of this section. No, more towards industrial parks, especially now vacant industrial buildings. If there's large commercial properties that are vacant, and the old style of raves or house parties, if they take up a regular residency in one of those locations, they can also be imposed these same fine structures. Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. I appreciate it. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Gary. Karen?
No questions, just great job, Chief. I like the ability of this to be able to separate circumstances and work with those folks who want to comply, and have the tools for those who don't. So good job.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Karen. And Matt, good job on this. I'm tuned with Mendel. I like to see the lower end of the fines a little higher than that, but I'm not going to stand on it. We'll obviously go forward with this. And to your point, compliance is the name of the game at the end of the day. And Godspeed with making sure that we don't have any issues to have to even use these tools. So thank you again. Any final comments?
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
We need to have the Deputy City Clerk read the motion.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. At this time, the recommended action is to introduce for first reading ordinance entitled An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Glendora, California, amending Chapter 9.44 of the Municipal Code, Public Safety Expenses, by reading of the title only and waiving for the reading, and also adopt a resolution entitled A Resolution of the City Council of the City of Glendora, California, amending the City of Glendora's master fee schedule related to public safety expenses. I see that we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Davis and a second by Councilmember Thompson. And I will take a roll call vote. Councilmember Thompson?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl?
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis?
Yes.
And Mayor Alawas?
Yes.
And that passes 5-0. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Elvia. And so, Councilmember Boyer, can you give us an update on the World Series before we go to consent?
Dodgers took the lead 2-1, and we're in the bottom of the 7th inning.
Thank you for that. This brings us to the consent calendar, being enacted by one motion, unless anyone cares to poll anything for a separate comment. Does anyone wish to poll any
I
item?
move to approve.
No.
Deputy City Clerk, will you read the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, the motion to approve consent calendar items 5 and 6. A motion was made by Mayor Pro Tem Davis. Is there a second?
I will second.
That is Councilmember Friedendahl. I will take a roll call vote. Councilmember Thompson,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl,
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis,
Yes.
and Mayor Alawas.
Yes.
And that passes 5-0. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Elvia. This brings to unfinished business, an award of a contract service agreement with PM AM Corporation to manage the false alarm program for a 3-year period. I'd like to invite again, Police Chief Egan to present the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to defer to Captain Matt Williams. He is our presenter for this evening. I'm going to call him the designated presenter in honor of the World Series.
Thank you,
Funny
Chief.
guy.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council, Department Heads, City Manager, and the community. I'm happy to be before you to talk about the false alarm program management RFP that went out. Next slide, please. For background, on December 10th, the council directed staff to initiate a request for proposals for vendors interested in managing the city's false alarm management program. January 14th, 2020, council amended the Glendora Municipal Code and master fee schedule to be a more contemporary fee and fine schedule. The focus of the amendments were to reduce the number of false alarms from commercial and residents. Over 98% of the alarms are false, accounting for over 2,500 hours of wasted staff time and cost to the city of over $381,000 per year. Next slide, please. So the current, just to refresh our memories, the current fee and fine structure is before you. So there's 2 delineated fine and fee structures, one with the permit, one without a permit. Obviously, the motivation to get a permit is what we want. And then there's 2 different permits to obtain, one residential and one commercial, each having their own appropriate fee. Next slide, please. So went out to RFP. The requirements from the vendor was to provide a turnkey false alarm billing and management system, which means issue and track alarm system permits, perform monthly billing of false alarm fees, collect revenue and permits and false alarm billings, collect revenue and delinquent alarm holders, be responsible for all costs associated with the program, and be compensated through a revenue sharing model. Next slide, please. So the city received 3 proposals, one from PMAM with the revenue sharing of 83% and 17%. This company has an excellent reputation with other St. Gabriel cities. They've actually provided higher percentages of revenue sharing in our neighbors. So higher than 17%. So I was happy to get that request from them. They possess a criminal justice information services certificate. This is the same level of protection the police department is mandated to possess. They have a true smartphone application for Android and Apple and provide capability with in-house software, which is our Spillman. And I'll get into more details of why I'm going to recommend them in a later slide. The other 2 we received, one alarm program systems with an 87 and 13% revenue sharing split. I'm not going to recommend this company as they don't offer the same level of service and data protection. And then Central Square Cry Wolf with 86 and 14%. Again, not going to recommend this vendor as another department within the city has had a negative interaction with them. Next slide, please. Just to further go down the rabbit hole of why I'm offering PMAM as the best solution. They offer the most value for the community. They have a web-based platform which offers a lot of access and ease to the community. This provides ease of obtaining permits for those who aren't so techy and want to deal with tech. They do offer mail-in solutions and a customer service phone number where we can pick up the phone and get a customer service representative as well. We will be able to access, our dispatchers will get access to their data in real time, which is helpful to us. They offer real-time hearing and appeal support, self-service web portal. They can access 24/7, access permits, applying for permits, pay fines and fees, update contact information. As I previously stated, they also offer live customer service representatives to answer questions about our ordinance, invoices, fines, and fees. They offer a community education component because the true intent of this is to reduce false alarms. So they do offer an online academy educational CDs, and then as part of their our zero cost, they will offer bill inserts to educate the community. They're a tech forward company. They offer a Facebook chat option where they can provide self-service through Facebook Messenger. And again, a dedicated service phone number for the Glendora community to talk to somebody. Next slide, please. So the recommendations tonight before you is award the contract to PMAM to manage the city's false alarm management program with a revenue sharing percentage of 70% for a term of 3 years with the option to extend the contract for 2 one-year terms and authorize the mayor to execute the agreement. I do want to just highlight and remind everyone that PMAM is going to just process the false alarm data. Our police officers will still be responding to the scene, determining if the false alarm is a valid alarm or a false alarm. So our officers will still be making that determination. And I also want to take a moment to thank Elvia, Chief and other department heads, City Attorney for getting me through this process. I've learned a lot and I want to say thank you. And with that, I'd like to receive any questions that anybody may have.
Thank you, Captain. So I'll bring it back to council for questions. Mendel?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I certainly support this. I think it's a wonderful thing. The revenue sounds good. The questions that I had I asked those offline, so I'm satisfied with this. Matt, I really appreciate the scope of the work that you've done. The company, I've read everything about them, and they sound like really a top-notch group. So thank you for this, and I support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mendel. David?
Yeah, thank you, Captain. Question for you. While alarms are designed for unwanted breaches, they also address water flow and fire alarm type things. Is that also included in our potential valid / false alarm criteria, or do it?
So with the updated municipal code that was previously passed, anything that would have an exterior audible sound to it would require a permit. So if there's an alarm or some type of system that you have in-house or something you've installed yourself to alert a water flow issue or flooding that doesn't create an exterior audible noise, then you wouldn't require a permit for that.
I guess I was thinking in a commercial building, most of those buildings that are required to be sprinklered are also required to have flow alarms. So, and those are bells on the outside of the building.
Now, if they actually had a breach like that, then that would be a valid alarm and wouldn't count against them in this program.
Okay, but our system would also monitor if one of those came across as a false alarm, that would count as a false alarm?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you. No other questions.
Thank you, David. Gary?
one of the questions I was curious as well about who's required to get a permit, but are companies that install alarms, are they required to report to the city, anybody that installs something that may need a permit?
The municipal code mandates the alarm company to communicate the need for a permit through the city. So when the alarm company, and I had actually received a question a couple months ago from an alarm company clarifying about our municipal code. So the alarm companies do read our municipal code. They have to abide by it. There's a lot of other things within the municipal code that put an onus on the providers and monitoring companies. So they have an onus to tell the homeowner when they're installing it that they will have to get a permit.
Okay, and then the next question is, are alarm companies that install and or monitor alarms in the city, are they required to have Glendora business licenses? I think that's a Matt question or an Adam question.
Yes, they would be required to do so.
Okay. And so does anybody know, because the larger companies are going to be installing these things in virtually every city in California. Do the larger companies typically comply with that and have local business licenses?
I don't have the information off the top of my head for that, but I would assume many have, but we can look that up and get back to the group.
Okay. It'd be good to know, because the average person isn't going to know whether or not they're required to have a permit as to whether or not an alarm is going off. But yeah, the false alarms are a huge problem, and I do think this is a good idea, and so I'm supportive of it as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Gary. Karen?
No questions. Thank you, Captain Williams.
Thank you, Karen. Again, good report, Captain. I just have one question on page 2, third paragraph. It says that we can't terminate this agreement until after $25,000 and the sunk costs are met. Do we have any benchmarks knowing how long that might take with our surrounding cities and or our data that we have in the past of false alarms?
It's a little bit of a shot in the dark. With COVID, our false alarms have reduced in number compared to previous years. In previous years' data, I was estimating about 150, 160,000 revenue or recoup of costs over the time span of a year. So doing some fuzzy math, 3-4 months.
Okay, great. That takes care of a good question. I have no further questions with that. Madam Deputy City Clerk, can you read the request of motion, please?
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, the recommended action is to award the contract for the city's false alarm program management to PMAM Corporation with a revenue sharing percentage of 17% and authorize, this would be the mayor, to execute the agreement. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion from Councilmember Thompson, second from Mayor Pro Tem Davis. I will take a roll call. Councilmember Thompson?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl?
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis?
Yes.
And Mayor Alawas?
Yes.
And that passes 5-0. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Elvia. This brings us to new business. Item 8, award an agreement to National Demographic Corporation for demographic services. I invite Deputy City Clerk Elvia to report.
Thank you, Mayor. What we have before Council this evening is an item to award an agreement for demographic services to National Demographic Corporation for the purposes of redistricting after the census. And so I'll go into a little bit of detail and some background as to how we arrived at that. Firstly, as you are aware, and for the benefit of the viewers at home, in June of 2017, there was a demand letter that was received by the city of Glendora, along with many other cities, alleging violation of the California Voting Rights Act. And in order to comply with that demand letter, and avoid litigation, which would have been costly, the city council moved to voluntarily move to by-district elections along with many other cities in July 13th of 2017. At that time, the contract was procured by the then city attorney, probably due to the very short turnaround time that was required in order to comply with this. That city attorney at the time contracted with National Demographic Corporation. By October of 2017, the city council had adopted its first district map that outlined the general municipal elections for districts 2, 3, and 5 to occur in March of 2020, which we recently just had, and the next election to be held for districts 1 and 4 in March of 2022. So this is a picture of the current city boundaries for the districts. And this is just a depiction and a little comment that after every federal census, it is required that California's reestablish the boundaries of its districts to reflect the new population and shifting populations. So that's one of the factors to consider. In addition, there are several other factors that affect this particular redistricting that we have coming up. And give us new mandates that require us to reevaluate the city's current district maps in a more in-depth way. First of which is a Supreme Court ruling that recently occurred on the 13th. And we've got 3 pieces of legislation that was passed at the state level that I will review in further detail. The first was a Supreme Court ruling that allowed the Census Bureau to declare its data collection complete about 2 weeks earlier than normal per their usual timeline. So now, because of this, the census data is anticipated to be released by the Census Bureau in April of 2021. And that means to the city that the data will be released later than the statutory deadline, which normally is March 31st. So we have a little bit of a hesitation with receiving the data. Secondly is the California statute AB 849, which changes mapping criteria significantly compared to the first time that the district maps were drawn. This requires cities and counties to use the population data and move prisoners in state prisons from their prison location to the last known address. And this impacts the census data in being able to turn it around and release it by about 2 to 4 weeks because of delays in needing to evaluate and change the data based on this mandate. The second part of AB 849 is that it sets new requirements for public hearings and record keeping. Now the requirement is a minimum of 4 public hearings, 1 public hearing to be done and completed before any draft maps can be drawn. And the second adds a requirement to retain all public records related to redistricting for a period of 10 years. And what that means to Glendora is that the timeline that's required in order to comply with this mandate is going to be a little longer because of the number of public hearings that are needed. And also we would have to come back to change the records retention policy in order to now allot for a new category of redistricting and keeping records for that for 10 years. There's a third portion of AB 849, and that is a requirement for mapping criteria that's significantly different than the initial one, a little bit more complex. We've got 5 different elements that were added. I'm going to name them. I am not by any means well-versed in what all of these are in detail, but I will name them. First is equal population in compliance with Federal Voting Rights Act. The second is contiguity, which means the map cannot be chopped up. The third is minimizing divisions of the neighborhood and socioeconomic communities of interest that would benefit from being united as a single district. The fourth is to follow recognizable boundaries, which means you can't cut through someone's home or through a business. And the last would be compactness. Now, other criteria can be considered, but only after these initial 5 are met. And these are also in order of their precedence, so in order of importance. The impact now to the city of Glendora as a result of this is the analysis that's going to need to happen is going to be a lot more in-depth, a little more complex. And so then we move to SB 970. SB 970 moved the state primary. Now the 2022 state primary is now moved from March to June of 2022. The way it's depicted in the language is on even numbered years when there is no presidential election. So now this change is a permanent change for the gubernatorial elections, and the primary will then bounce back and forth from March when it's a presidential election year, June when it's a gubernatorial election year. Impacts to the city now are that districts 1 and 4 are up for re-election, and the term ends in March of 2022. This new mandate now moves that state primary to June. So in order to comply with the mandate, council will have to evaluate options once they're presented at a later date. Now, the Los Angeles County Register Recorder's Office is working to address this issue and is providing additional information on what cities can do and how that's going to affect their administering of elections, and will report to the city, excuse me, and will report to the cities after the November election. So once the November election happens, this is the top priority for them. They're going to be meeting, discussing, and then working with the cities in order to figure out what options the cities have in order to comply with this. Now, the last one is AB 1276. AB 1276 essentially came about to clean up some of the ambiguity of AB 849. In its final form, it extends the deadline to complete redistricting and cleans up some of the ambiguous language that was incorporated in AB 849 initially. So AB 849, because of that prison data analysis that has to happen now, pushes out the release of the census data by a couple of weeks. So they had to now come up with AB 1276's provision to then extend the deadline for cities to complete their redistricting. So that's the first element of it. So our redistricting then gets us to a deadline of December 15th of 2021 to finish the redistricting. And for those cities that have that have November elections, their deadline is April 17th of 2022. But for the purposes of our redistricting, that deadline then is pushed out to give us sufficient time to December 15th. It also eliminates the rule that cities and counties could not finish redistricting before August 15, 2021. Because of the shift in timelines, now that is a moot point and was eliminated altogether because it didn't make sense to be kept in there. The third is it makes minor language cleanup provisions. So where there was some discrepancy between charter cities and general law cities, it cleaned up some of that language so that this would apply equally to charter cities and general law cities. So basically the impacts to the city for this this mandate is that we will have from May to December 21st of 2021 to complete the redistricting process. Also, in addition to that, it allows us to recommend that point forward, we add a redistricting budget every 10 years to the budget, which, this is kind of the first time that we went to districts. So now as an FYI, we'll be looking to add that to the budgets and make sure that that's a recurring thing every 10 years. So we move on to part of the scope of what's going to be expected of the consultant as they move forward in this. This is kind of an overview of what they will be providing because their actual detailed scope is not going to be available until the census data comes out and they're able to analyze all that census data to give us what their plan is going to be. So in essence, they're going to be evaluating in depth the census data once it's available. They'll be coming up with a project setup, a project plan development, and a project implementation plan that will include in-person virtual meetings as needed and outreach assistance to the city as well. A lot of which was what we saw the initial time that they were here to kind of walk us through the district mapping process that we did initially. The one thing that I do want to mention is that the requested amount of approval for the contract is a not to exceed amount, so that we have enough wiggle room to allow for the maximum amount of public input and the maximum options that council would like us to move forward with in order to make sure that this gets done accurately and to the degree that it meets the mandate. So the reason why National Demographic Corporation was is being recommended at this point is that the new requirements and the new census data that's coming out require for a much more thorough reevaluation of the city's district maps and the city census information. What we anticipated, what we would like is to advise that we move forward and approve this because it avoids also lengthy onboarding for a new consultant. As NDC is very well versed and uniquely qualified in how we were able to reach our current district maps, and also the technology that they offer is already in line with what's compatible to the city. It would be a much easier transition. They'd be able to kind of hit the ground running. So as a result of that, we'd be able to save quite a bit of money and time. Which is one of the reasons why, which is actually one of the main reasons why we are recommending to approve the contract. So for City Council's consideration, the staff is recommending award of the agreement for demographic services to National Demographic Corporation for a not to exceed amount of $50,000. Authorization for the Administrative Services Director to make the necessary budget adjustments to appropriate $50,000 from the General Fund Contingency Account, and to authorize the City Manager to execute the agreement. And I am open to any questions council might have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elvia. Bring this back to council. Mendel?
Yes, I certainly support this for everything that's been said. And, Elvia, you did a fantastic job of weaving all of the elements into a sensible and rational assessment. Thank you for doing that. You did a great job. I think that the company that we're talking about here is an excellent choice because of the history that they've had with us. I think they did an excellent job when they, did this when we were under really a kind of a tight time frame. So I support this. I know that there's a lot of questions that will come because of what the districting is and the census and all of that. And I don't think that we're here tonight to talk about those, but I certainly support this and hope that everybody else will too. So thank you.
Thank you. I do want to mention that Doug Johnson, the president of National Demographics Corporation, is here and available if there are any questions on a more in-depth level regarding the redistricting.
Thank you, Elvia. David?
Thank you. Since we are complying with a state requirement, sadly, I'm probably going to expect the state doesn't offer any funding to help support this, do they?
Right now, there's nothing that's written in the state mandate. No, there's no funding that's been written in the state mandate. Although there was some language that was written, I don't know in what level of detail, but there was some language that was written that, if there's, oh my gosh, there was so much that I read, but there was some language that was written that you are allowed to recoup some expenditures as a result of something. So I can give you more detail at a later date. Research that a little bit for you, Councilmember Friedendahl. I do know that there was some small portion of the language that was written that would allow for some kind of reimbursement. I very much doubt that it would be a complete reimbursement, but probably at some point a small reimbursement of something. But I will find that language and send it to you.
Okay, thank you for that.
You're quite welcome.
Noticing, I agree, it's probably the logical direction to choose the company that has history with us. Their attendance at meetings will be premium, so we want to watch how we do that because they're at a high rate on that, in my opinion. But I'm sure we're earning or getting our money's worth. So I will support this. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Gary?
Well, Elvia, I'd like to start with congratulating you for being able to give that report with a straight face. This has to be some of the most convoluted legislation we've ever seen. You know, we have to hire a consultant to help us through this. And I understand these guys did a great job helping us before. So I'm going to appreciate their expertise and what they did before getting us through it again. But I look at this and I'm going, by the time we get done with it, the rules are probably going to be different again. So one more reason everybody needs to get out and vote next week, but I support moving forward with this consultant. Thanks.
Thank you, Gary. Karen?
Thank you, Elvia, for being able to give us the Reader's Digest version of all the legislation that's passed and how it impacts each piece of it. So thank you very much. And yes, National Demographic Corporation did a great job last time. So look forward to having them help lead us through this part of districting as well.
Thank you, Karen. Elvia, I'd like to extend my thanks to you for what you've done with this. This is absolutely incredible. I read through this as well and makes your head spin. I'm sure this was not fun. I'm sure this kept you up at night working through this and going through all the documentation. Mr. Johnson, I see that you're on here. Just a quick question for you. Had we not gone through this when we did our redistricting, how would this next process have been? Would it have been much more challenging? Or is it, since you already have a lot of the models in place, is it easier to tweak them as opposed to starting from scratch?
Well, starting from scratch is typically a bigger project. A lot of that will be driven by how much population imbalance there is among the districts once we get the census data. But it is a trade-off. So the process is less complicated now. The challenge is that before there were maybe 15 jurisdictions going through the process at the time you did. And now everyone's jammed together. As Ms. Harvey said, we have this about 8-month window. So instead of doing about 15, now there's going to be about 400 jurisdictions jamming into this window. So that complicates it from a timing perspective. But from working with the maps and your side of it, it should be a simpler process.
How many other cities are you currently working with or going to be working with, do you suspect?
Not sure. Part of the calculation there is that I'm building up a big team. So whereas when we went through this with you before, we had about 3 people that were trained up on this, and we're in the midst of training 12. So on the easier, simpler projects, newer folks will be there. Of course, if anything gets complicated, I'll be there, or my vice president that's also done this for 20 years will be there. So we'll probably cut it off at around 100 or 150, which is about the same, roughly the same number as we did in 2011.
Go ahead, Bill.
So ask Mr. Johnson how the process that he's going to do for Glendora compares to the process he's doing in Carson right now.
You got that?
Which one is the nightmare, Mr. Johnson?
Well, one of them involved a $540,000 legal settlement. So
that would have been Carson.
Yes, exactly.
This is a substantial amount of money, but this is every penny well spent. We've used this firm in a number of our cities and gotten good results. And thanks to these folks, the mess that is Carson right now is not as big a mess as it might have otherwise been. So our office fully supports engaging this firm.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Does anyone else have any final comments or questions?
No.
All right, Elvia, can you read the motion, please?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Mayor. The staff recommendation at this time is to award a contract services agreement to National Demographic Corporation for post-2020 census redistricting in an amount not to exceed $50,000. Authorize the Administrative Services Director to make the necessary budget adjustments to appropriate $50,000 from the general fund contingency, and authorize the city manager to execute the agreement. Do we have a motion?
I will move.
Oh, lots of people. Okay, I heard Councilmember Friedendahl. Is there a second?
Second.
That's Mayor Pro Tem Davis. I'll take a roll call vote. Councilmember Thompson,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl,
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis,
Yes.
and Mayor Alawas.
Yes.
And that passes 5-0. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Elvia. This brings us to item number 9, 2020 holiday season and discussion of.
Mr. Mayor, could I interrupt and just let the world know that the Dodgers won? Gary, you can tip your hat.
I'll do that. Karen got on board in the middle of the meeting. Didn't even notice. Good job.
What was the final score?
3-1.
3-1.
So we know that that's happening here in Cyprus because of all the illegal fireworks that are going off right now.
And that may or may not be happening here in Glendora.
Yes, I just heard some in my neighborhood, so.
Yeah. Matt, if you have to leave the meeting, we understand.
To go celebrate, yes. That's great.
Thank you all. Okay. I'll start all over again. 2020 holiday season and discussion of cancellation and or possible rescheduling of the City Council regular joint meetings. No Grinches allowed. Deputy City Clerk, would you want to present the staff report, please?
Thank you, Mayor. I do not have a PowerPoint. This should be relatively brief. The item before you this evening is for a review of the 2020 holiday season and discussion of cancellation and or possibly rescheduling City Council regular joint meetings in lieu of some of these meetings being close to holidays. I attached to the staff report a list of the holidays, and you'll see that on that list, we have a City Council meeting scheduled for November 10th and November 24th. 24th is the Tuesday, 2 days prior to Thanksgiving. We have another holiday for December. The meetings in December are scheduled for December 8th and December 22nd. December 22nd is the Tuesday, 2 days prior to Christmas Eve. So I presented to council for their review a list of the items that are currently drafted and scheduled for the November and December meetings. And for the November 24th meeting date, rather, we have a reopening of the economy special item. We have a successor agency investment report, which is a receive and file. We have a community development CDBG 5-year consolidated action plan, which can be rescheduled to the earlier date of November 10th. I've spoken with Valerie Velasquez on that. For the December dates, the December 22nd meeting has no scheduled items in OMBASE at this time. So for City Council review and consideration and discussion, staff would request that City Council review these meeting dates and give direction whether or not canceling the second meeting in November and December would be suitable and acceptable to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Elvia. Mendel?
I would concur that we should go dark on 11/24 and 12/22. I would certainly support that.
David?
I can support that and certainly concur to the experience of the group.
Gary?
Ditto.
Karen?
Yes, I would affirm that.
We are all in agreement. And Deputy City Clerk, can you read the motion with what Mendel's recommendation was?
Mendel's recommendation, I'm sorry.
To go dark on 11/24 and 12/22.
Thank you. Thank you. The recommended action then is to go dark for City Council meetings on November 24th and December 22nd. Do we have a motion?
I would move that.
Thank you. And second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, second by Mayor Pro Tem Davis. I will take a roll call vote. Councilmember Thompson?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl?
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis?
Yes.
And Mayor Alawas?
Yes.
And that passes 5-0. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Elvia. Brings item number 10, acceptance of Glendora Public Library Friends Foundation Grant Award for fiscal 2021 for supplemental funding for programs and services. I'd like to invite Library Director Janet Stone to present the staff report. Janet?
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, staff, and community members. This has become an annual ritual, so I also have no PowerPoint. Tonight, we are asking the council to approve the acceptance of $166,385 for supplemental funding for library programs and services, and to authorize the Administrative Services Director to make the necessary budget adjustments. These generous funds are being offered by the ever instrumental Glendora Public Library Friends Foundation in response to multiple grant proposals made by the library in June of 2020. A tip of the cap here to Senior Librarian Cindy Romero, who does the lion's share when it comes to drafting these requests. So thank you, Cindy. The foundation, who of course was honored earlier this evening, is a long-standing 501c3 charitable organization whose collaboration with the City of Glendora provides financial support to enhance the services of the Glendora Public Library beyond the capabilities of local tax revenues. The annual grant proposal process involves representatives of the Board of Library Trustees, Library Administration and Management, and the foundation, and grant funds will be dispersed as reimbursement for expenses submitted by the City of Glendora. More detail about the process and the stipulations is in the written report, which also describes how the foundation funds help support everything from equipment to supplies, from performers to summer reading incentives, and of course, content for the public in both print and electronic formats. Summer reading, our e-library, and high interest materials are three major areas of foundation support. So finally, to add a little flavor to all of that official stuff, I'll share some comments we got directly from a community member through the website this summer. I basically wanted to let all of our wonderful librarians know how much we've loved being able to still check out books during the closure. My kids love the summer reading program, and I'm so glad that a way was figured out in terms of how to keep the program running. The science and art projects to go have been so appreciated by my family as well. We of course miss coming to the library so much, but are so grateful for the out-of-box thinking and extra work that so many have gone to. Thank you for keeping my kids reading. We, behind the scenes, thank the foundation for their part in making all of that you just heard about possible. That really concludes my verbal comments. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Janet. Well done without a PowerPoint. Well, this brings back to council. Mendel?
Nothing to say except I move acceptance. That's great. Super.
David?
I just want to thank and applaud the continuing invaluable efforts of the staff and the Public Library Foundation friends. Continuing to do this is a passionate goal to keep the library a destination. So congratulations and well done, and thank you for all the effort.
Gary?
It's already been said, the foundation does a great job, but you know, I really want to thank the residents of Glendora. The foundation did a virtual night on the plaza this year, and doing that event virtually, I believe they raised as much money or very close to as much money. They netted very close to as much money as they normally do with the live event. So the residents of Glendora came through. They showed their support for the library, even though we didn't get a chance to get out and party together. But great job as always. And naturally, I'm going to support this.
Thank you, Gary. Karen?
I just thank you to the foundation and to the library and all the staff. Shout out to Miss Cindy, and thank you, Miss Janet.
Thank you, Karen. And I too like to extend my thanks to the foundation and the library. You guys are amazing at the library. You're such a support mechanism for the entire community and other communities at large. So I'm very thankful for everything you do and the Friends Foundation. Elvia, can you read the motion, please?
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, the recommended action is to approve the acceptance of approve the acceptance of $166,385 for supplemental funding for the library programs and services, and to authorize the Administrative Services Director to make the necessary budget adjustments to increase estimated revenues and appropriations for the grant. I believe I heard Councilmember Thompson state that he wanted to move to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis seconded. I will take a roll call. Councilmember Thompson,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl,
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis,
Yes.
and Mayor Alawas.
Yes.
And that passes 5-0. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Elvia. This brings us to item number 11, second to the last item, consideration of a resolution to approve a landmark permit review and amendment to a Mills Act agreement to allow a demolition of an existing garage and construction of a new garage on the historic landmark location of 111 North Pasadena Avenue. Applicant and party owner is Karen Fortas. Project number is PLN 20-0016. I'd like to invite Community Development Director Jeff Kugel to present the staff report.
Hi, Mayor. My name is Joseph Weaver, interim assistant planner. I'll be presenting the staff report on this item.
Thank you.
On behalf of Community Development. So good evening, Mayor and council members. Again, my name is Joseph Weaver. This item is a request for the approval of a landmark permit review and an amendment to a Mills Act agreement to allow the demolition of an existing garage and construction of a new garage on a historic landmark at 111 North Pasadena Avenue. Just to clarify, the Planning Commission reviewed this subject request on October 6th, 2020, and unanimously recommended approval to City Council. Next, please. The approval of the subject request will allow the demolition of an existing 490 square foot detached garage and the construction of a new 550 square foot detached garage with a 478 square foot carport. And this is on a historic property. Next, please. Per the municipal code, a landmark permit is required as there is work being proposed on the same property as a historic landmark, in this case, the main residence. Additionally, an amendment to an existing Mills Act agreement is being requested. This amendment proposes to delete text that prohibits the property owner from demolishing the garage. To clarify, the Mills Act is a state law allowing cities to enter into contracts with the owners of historic structures. This contract grants a reduction of property taxes in exchange for the preservation of the historic property. The owner of the subject property entered a Mills Act agreement with the city on January of 1999. And to date, the owner has done numerous improvements to the property, which are displayed in attachment K to the staff report. The existing Mills Act agreement with proposed text deletion can also be seen as attachment I to the staff report. And since Mills Act agreements are approved by City Council, this application request shall be reviewed and approved by Council, as stated before. As shown here, you can see the only proposed change to the existing Mills Act agreement includes the deletion of the word garage, which would allow the property owner to demo the garage as part of this proposal. Next, please. So shown here is just some quick legislative history. So in 1998, the subject property, 111 North Pasadena, designated as a historical landmark number 20 by the City Council. In 1999, the subject property entered the Mills Act agreement with the city. Later in 1999, a 450 square foot addition to the rear of the main residence was approved by the Historic Preservation Committee. 2005, a 460 square foot addition to the south of the main residence was approved by City Council. And earlier this month, on October 6th, the request was reviewed by the Planning Commission, which, as stated before, recommended unanimous approval to the City Council. Next, please. So this is a vicinity map of the subject property, which is approximately 10,400 square feet in size. It's located on the west side of North Pasadena Avenue, just north of its intersection with East Foothill Boulevard. The property has a general plan land use designation of low medium density residential and a zoning designation of R1 single family residential, which is the existing use of the property. Surrounding properties consist of similar zoning designations and land use designations, with the exception of the R2 zone properties to the west of the subject property. As shown, the subject detached garage is located on the southwestern portion of the property, adjacent to the alley, which is kind of pointed out in the aerial image right here. Next, please. So these are a summary of the existing structures on the property. Yes, the main residence is a 1,858 square foot historic residence. Per the landmark designation file, the main residence was built in 1907 and is characterized by both craftsman and Victorian architectural elements. It features a side gabled roof with exposed rafters, a front porch, roof dormers, and wood siding exterior. As stated before, the residence has undergone 2 additions since its landmark designation in 1998. And to clarify, no alterations to the main residence are proposed as part of this project. The main residence can be seen on the photo on the top. The existing detached garage, as shown on the bottom, is a 490 square foot garage. It consists of a wood frame, gable roof, board and batten siding, and the garage was most likely built around the same time as the main residence. Next, please. So these are just going to be some photos real quickly of the garage proposed to be demolished. This is a northeast elevation of the garage. Next, please. Another photo of the garage is the north elevation, and these photos are taken from the backyard. Next, please. Another northeast elevation, a little closer photo of the existing garage. Next, please. And this is an east elevation of the garage across from the existing pool. Next, please. And this is a northwest elevation of the garage taken from the alley to the west of the existing, or to the west of the property. Next, please. And lastly, this is a southwest elevation of the garage, again taken from the adjacent alley. Next. And for context, this is a front photo of the existing house and a rear photo of the existing house, just for visual context on what the existing historic residence looks like. Next, please. So this existing site plan just quickly shows you the superposition of the existing garage on the property. Again, it's tucked away in the corner adjacent to the alley, detached. Next, please. Due to the historic landmark status of the main residence and the proposed demolition of the existing garage, a historic building assessment was conducted on the subject property in June of 2020. The assessment was conducted by Applied Earthworks, which is a company based in Pasadena who specializes in history, archaeology, paleontology, and cultural resource management. The purpose of the assessment was to inspect and assess the subject garage, research its history, and evaluate its contribution to the historic significance of the property, since it is being proposed to be demolished. Next, please. According to the assessment, the garage was most likely built in 1907 at the same time as the main residence. The garage underwent numerous alterations and repairs, which were conducted by a previous property owner between the periods of 1934 and 1995. These alterations included the widening of the original structure, the addition of a concrete floor, the addition of a workshop, and the addition of a covered porch, all of which were done without building permits and prior to the property's landmark designation. And additionally, in a manner which does not meet the Secretary of Interior standards for preservation and rehabilitation, which is a current benchmark for alterations to historic structures. The assessment concluded that, quote, the subject structure has changed in appearance, lacks integrity, and is no longer a contributing feature of the historic property, and that the proposed demolition of the garage will not detract from the historic significance of the residence as a historic property, nor will its absence interfere with the surrounding neighborhood character, end quote. The subject building assessment can be viewed as attachment H to this staff report. And additionally, it's worth mentioning that the existing garage is not mentioned within the landmark designation file for this property. Next, please. And this is a proposed site plan of the garage. The proposal includes the new 550 square foot garage and an attached 478 square foot carport, which can be seen located in approximately the same location as the existing garage proposed to be demolished. Next, please. And displayed here are the elevations of the proposed garage and carport, which are architecturally consistent with the craftsman elements of the existing residence. The structure, as shown, features a gable roof form with a cross gable for the carport, cement fiber siding and composition shingles for the roof. All colors and materials will match the existing historic residence. And additionally, the city's historic preservation development handbook recommends that projects follow the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation of historic structures. These guidelines are offered by the U.S. Department of the Interior and provide direction for the rehabilitation of historic buildings and properties. Again, as stated before, these are used as a benchmark for any proposed work thereon. Staff has listed these standards within the draft resolution, and this project's compliance with those standards. Next, please. And lastly, this is a table of the development standards for the new two-car garage and carport. The project is in compliance with all applicable development standards for a new garage in the R1 zone. Next, please. As such, staff recommends that the City Council adopt a notice of exemption for this project pursuant to the following sections of the CEQA guidelines. Make findings with fact, which are hereby incorporated in full within the draft resolution, and hereby grant landmark permit review and an amendment to a Mills Act agreement to allow the demolition of an existing garage and construction of a new garage at 111 North Pasadena Avenue, subject to conditions of approval. That concludes my staff report. I'm available to answer any questions that the council or members of the public may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. Well done on your report. Bring us back to council. Mendel?
Yes, I really like this. Joseph, excellent report. Planning has vetted this by a 5-0 vote. I like the way that the new look is going to fit in. And although I hate to see something this old go, there's a time and a season for it. And so I'm going to support this, and I think it's good. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mendel. David?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too support this and compliment the team. The presentation is excellent. I think the new garage will be an exciting improvement to the home, and it certainly aesthetically will complement the home very much, which I don't think that the existing garage area does. It's served its time. So a great improvement. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Gary?
Yeah, I had a chance to go over and check out this the structure. The only thing historic on this thing anymore is that lumberjack saw above the door. It's been so many alterations to it, and a lot of different styles of materials been used. The homeowner's done a great job with the house itself, and they've done everything they can to try to save this structure, it looks like, but it's definitely time for it to go.
Thank you, Gary. Karen?
I think that the new garage will provide a much better home for that beautiful classic Lincoln Continental that we saw in the photo. So I think that it will be a very nice addition. So good job.
Thank you, Karen. I too like the new addition to it, but I do have a question. The Mills Act is designed to a trade-off of reduced taxes, correct? In keeping the historic landmark. Is that correct?
Correct. The purpose of the Mills Act agreement is to reduce the property taxes for the homeowner in exchange for the upkeep of the historic property and its architectural significance.
So will the Mills Act cover the new garage and not have a reassessment of that garage since it's no longer historic?
The Mills Act will not have mention of the new garage to be built, no.
So will they have a reassessment of their property tax?
I'm not sure if the new how the new garage.
Joseph,
will...
I can answer that.
Okay.
Just like any construction, even on a historic home, the Mills Act offers an offset of the historic property. So the construction, just like anything else, will go further the value of that home. So the new building will increase the overall property value and assessed valuation.
Okay, thank you for that, Adam. I have no further questions. Deputy City Clerk, will you read the motion, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. At this time, the staff recommendation is to adopt a categorical exemption, adopt a resolution entitled "A Resolution of the City Council of the City of Glendora, California, approving a landmark permit review and an amendment to the Mills Act agreement to allow for the demolition of an existing garage and construction of a new garage on a historic landmark at 111 North Pasadena Avenue, Glendora, California, Plan 20-0016. Do we have a motion?
I will move.
And do we have a second?
Second.
That is a motion by Councilmember Friedendahl, a second by Councilmember Boyer. I'll take a roll call vote. Councilmember Thompson?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl?
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis?
Yes.
And Mayor Alawas?
Yes.
And that passes 5-0. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Elvia. This brings us to our last and final item, number 12, execute funding agreement for a sub-recipient procurement certificate for sections 5310, enhanced mobility of senior and individuals with disabilities program. I'd like to invite Community Development Director Jeff Kugel to present the staff report.
Oh, Mayor, this is Stephen Mateer. I'll be presenting the item tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you, Mayor and City Council.
Director tonight, huh?
Yeah, Joe and I are taking turns.
Okay, go for it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and City Council. My name is Stephen Mateer. I'm the Transportation Manager. The item before you is to execute the funding agreement for the 5310 grant that we received, as well as the sub-recipient procurement certification form. Next slide, please. The Section 5310 grant is an FTA-funded program. It is intended to improve transportation for seniors and persons with disabilities. It is a highly competitive program that is administered by Metro. Staff applied for this grant in July of 2019, and Metro and the FTA formally awarded the city funding on July 2nd of 2020. Next slide, please. The scope of work for the grant is to purchase 4 replacement dial-a-ride vehicles seen here in the picture. It also includes funding for upgrading our dispatching software, which will include real-time arrival notifications for our passengers, the ability to make mobile trip reservations, as well as more efficient dispatching. Next slide, please. This is the funding plan. As you can see, the grant will cover 90% of the cost with a 10% city match. So the FTA is awarding us $304,309, and the city is under the funding agreement would commit $33,812. The cost for the 4 vehicles in total is $224,000. The dispatching software is $114,121. Next slide, please. And so we're asking tonight that the City Council authorize the Community Development Director to execute the funding agreement, as well as the sub-recipient procurement certification for the 5310 Enhanced Mobility of Seniors and Disabilities Program, and as well as authorize the Administrative Services Director to make the necessary budget adjustments to increase the estimated revenues and appropriate the funds in the grant amount of $304,309. And with that, I can take any questions from the council.
Thank you, Stephen. Brings back to council. Mendel?
Stephen, great job. The citizens, as you know, should be very pleased with this grant. We're getting 4 brand new vans, buses, a dispatch. Just great job. And thanks to you and your team. And I'm certainly going to support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mendel. David?
Thank you, and great work on getting the grant. I understand that right next door in a few months might be a new garage that could probably even be stored in, so that's a pretty cool thing. Curiosity question on the vehicles that are being changed out. What kind of typical mileage are we looking at to replace these at?
Their mileage can vary. One of our vans is older, so they have about an 8-year useful life. One doesn't have a lot of mileage on it, but it is past the 8-year. A couple have well over 150,000 miles on them. We usually go by the year or the age of the vehicle as our benchmark for replacing it.
Okay. All right. Well done. I support this and congratulate your team on their work. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Gary?
And no questions. Great job, Stephen. Appreciate the hard work.
Thank you, Gary. Karen?
Congratulations on getting this competitive grant. That's great.
Thank you, Karen. Again, well done, Stephen, and congratulations. Deputy City Clerk, will you read the motion, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, at this time, the recommended action is to authorize the Community Development Director to execute the funding agreement and sub-recipient procurement certification for Section 5310 Enhanced Mobility of Seniors and Individuals with Disabilities Program, and to authorize the Administrative Services Director to make the necessary budget adjustments to record the transaction. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
I heard Mayor Pro Tem Davis. Do we have a second? I think Friedendahl, I also heard. I will take a roll call vote. Councilmember Thompson?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl?
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis?
Yes.
And Mayor Alawas?
Yes.
And that passes 5-0. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Elvia. This brings us to our council and staff items. Mendel, any last words?
Vote. That's it.
David?
Yes, please go vote. Thank you.
Gary?
Just don't be crazy tonight and have a fun and safe Halloween weekend.
Karen?
Yay Dodgers, and be sure to vote.
Adam?
Just a special thank you to all the staff. Lots of presentations this evening. It was great to see some new faces before the camera, and everyone have a safe Halloween. And as you said earlier, Mayor, if you have questions, please visit the city's website or call us.
Thank you, Adam. Bill?
Nothing to report, Mayor. Thank you.
Any directors left on the call that wish to opine? Didn't think so. They're jumping off. I'd like to wish everybody a happy Halloween, and remember to be kind to everyone, especially during this election season. We are adjourned at 9:11 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.